A very good morning to all. On behalf of the Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities of General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University, we welcome you all to the first parallel technical session on language and education of 40th International Research Conference on Security, Stability and National Development in the New Normal. To begin with the proceedings, please rise for the KDU anthem. Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the session will be chaired by Professor Lalith Ananda. May I also have the honor of giving a brief introduction of the chairperson of this session. Professor Lalith Ananda is a professor attached to the Department of English and Linguistics, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. He was the head department of English and Linguistics, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Sri Lanka from 2012 to 2018. He has completed his Doctor of Philosophy, Master of Philosophy, and Master's degree in Linguistics from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India. He has earned his bachelor's degree specialized in English from the University of Kelaniya. He has also obtained bachelor's degree from the University of Peradeniya. He continues to work on academic research specialized in generative syntax. He has published his research in both local and international journals, and currently he is engaged in compiling a generative grammar of the Veda language. He has both presented papers and also chaired sessions as multiple conferences. Sir, we cordially invite you to commence the session. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we are about to commence the first technical session this morning of 14th Research Conference of KDU. And this technical session is on language and education. For this session, we have altogether 5 presenters. And let me first of all give some instructions to these presenters. You will be given 10 minutes for your presentation. And at the end of 8 minutes, you will hear the bell ring once. And at the end of 10 minutes, you will hear it twice. So soon after each presentation, we will go for the question and answer session, which will be about 2 to 3 minutes. So our first presenter today, we have number of authors. They are DGK Amunugama, EMAN Ekanayake, NN Welgama, NP Wickramage, and DU Wickramasinghe. The presenting author is WAD Dilumi Udeshika Wickramasinghe. Dilumi Wickramasinghe is a final year undergraduate, currently reading for the Bachelor of Arts Honours degree in teaching English as a second language at University of Kelaniya. She is pursuing the fields of sociolinguistics, language teaching and learning, as well as sociology and gender studies to continue her future research. So let me now invite Dilumi Wickramasinghe to present her research findings on an investigation on the constraints encountered by lower secondary learners with reference to the bilingual education policy in Sri Lanka. Over to you, Dilumi.
Good morning. Will I be able to share the screen, please?
Yes, you can.
It says it's disabled.
Let me check. I think it has been given. Let me check the
Oh yeah, okay. Now okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm Nilafma. I will be presenting the paper. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nilafma Welgama, one of the co-authors for the paper titled An Investigation on the Constraints Encountered by the Lower Secondary Learners with reference to the bilingual education policy in Sri Lanka. We are undergraduates from the University of Kelaniya from the Department of English Language Teaching. The content of our study are as follows. Bilingualism can be defined as expertise in two languages which are used in our daily discourse. Lightbound and Spada 1991 stated that children who are exposed to two languages in their early childhood are sometimes referred to as simultaneous bilinguals, while those who learn a second language later on are called sequential bilinguals. There are three common types of bilingual education programs as brought forward by Mahawatha 2012, namely Transitional Bilingual Program, Developmental Bilingual Program, and Immersion Bilingual Program. A language policy, as stated by Kaplan and Aboldov 1997, is a set of ideas, laws, regulations, norms, and practices intended to achieve the planned language shift in the society's group or system. Bilingual education policy in Sri Lanka states that several subjects such as mathematics, science, computer literacy, and social sciences must be taught using English as medium of instruction, while religion and history must be taught in the native language, Sinhala or Tamil. The primary objective of the study is to investigate the constraints encountered by lower secondary learners with reference to the bilingual education policy in Sri Lanka. While the research question of our study is what are the constraints encountered by lower secondary learners with reference to the bilingual education policy in Sri Lanka. Moving on to the methodology, the participants are a group of 50 heterogeneous grade 8 students who are at the age of 13. They learn English as a second language and represent 2 schools in the Kalaniya educational zone. The proficiency level can be placed in the UTEL benchmark 3, and the 4 language skills are taught considering their competency level, which will be evaluated by term end examinations. The sample was selected according to the non-probability sample method. Moving on to the data collection process. The data collection process was primarily done by giving out a questionnaire to the participants, and then 10 participants were selected from the sample for the semi-structured interviews using the random sampling method. The data analysis procedure is done through a quantitative and a qualitative data analysis, and the analyzed data are presented through charts and content analysis. Moving on to the findings of the questionnaire, 43 students stated that they attended a government school, while 7 students stated that they attended an international school. 32 of the students stated that the reason why they selected the medium of instruction as English was because of their parents' influence, and 10 students stated that it was because they passed the placement test. 5 students stated that it was because they were comfortable in learning an English language. Only 3 students said that it was because their friends were studying in English medium. 37 of the students stated that the selected subjects in English were difficult, and 10 students stated that it was manageable, while only 3 students stated that it was easy. As you can see in the chart, all the students attend English medium tuition classes for mathematics, and 44 students attend tuition classes for science, while 29 students attend for tuition classes in ICT, and 12 students attend to tuition classes in geography, and 7 students attend to tuition classes in health and physical education, and 5 students attend to tuition classes in citizenship education. 45 of the students from the sample said that they do not attend to classes that are conducted in their mother tongue for the subjects that they study in English. And only 5 students said that they do attend classes that are conducted in their mother tongue as well. 48 of the students stated that they have to put an extra effort into learning these subjects in English, while 2 students stated that they do not have to put an extra effort. 33 of the students said that they want the subjects religion and history to be taught in English medium, while 17 students said that they were happy because they were taught in Sinhala medium. And 38 of the students stated that they were happy about the decision to study in English medium, while 12 students stated that they were not happy about their decision. According to the findings of the interview, from the randomly selected 10 participants, 4 participants stated that they selected their medium of education as English because of their parents' influence, and 3 of the students stated that it was because they passed the placement test, and 3 students stated that it was because they were comfortable with learning in English. 8 participants of the interview stated that the subjects mathematics, science, computer literacy, and social sciences are difficult, and the reason for this was because the content itself was difficult, and it gets even more hard when they're following them in English medium. Only 2 participants mentioned that following the above mentioned subjects in English was manageable for them. 5 participants mentioned that they would like religion and history to be taught in English medium, and this was mainly because they find it difficult to switch between 2 languages just for these 2 subjects. And 5 participants, however, opposed this idea because they felt that these subjects would lose their effect, and they felt that learning these subjects in their native language helped them to feel more connected with these 2 subjects in a more personal level. only 6 participants of the interview agreed that they have to put an extra effort into learning the English medium subjects, and this was mainly because they had to memorize and practice technical terms, and they had to do it in a more conscious mind than those who are studying in the Sinhala medium. When they were asked about the decision to study in English medium, 7 participants stated that they were happy about the decision. And this was because it was easier for them to achieve their future goals, and also due to the comfortability of the language. 3 participants, however, mentioned that they were not happy about the decision. And this was because there was no interaction for them outside the classroom, and also they had unsatisfactory term test results. 2 participants also mentioned that they had comprehension difficulties as well. So after analyzing the questionnaire and the interview, the researchers found that the girls were more concerned about their studies in English medium rather than the boys. And also we found that the few students who wanted religion and history to be taught in English medium had apparently gained their primary education from an international school. And also we found that the students found subjects such as math, science, and ICT to be difficult. And this was because they consist of unfamiliar terms and the content itself was hard for them. So the percentage of students who attended the Sinhala medium tuition classes simultaneously to English medium classes was very less. And there were some students who were unhappy about the decision that they made in learning in English medium, and this was because they could not gain satisfactory term test results during the previous years. And also it was evident that most of these students, they chose to study in English medium because of their parents' influence or because they passed a placement test. So to conclude our study, the study proved that English medium learners find mathematics, science, social sciences, and ICT to be difficult, as most of them face language difficulties. And the bilingual policy mentions that several subjects are to be taught in learners' mother tongue, such as religion and history. But some of these students, they require these subjects to be taught in English medium. So the researchers believe that the syllabus and policymakers should consider these factors when they are making the syllabi. We have only chosen one educational zone. Future researchers can widen their scope by selecting several educational zones, and also they can investigate the gender aspect of the bilingual education policy in Sri Lanka. That is the end of our presentation. These are the references, and thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you very much, Dilome. Now it's the time for questions and answers. I invite the audience to ask any questions or any clarifications from Dilome. We have about 2 to 3 minutes for questions and answers. Vasana, we have enabled this for the audience also, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So looks like there are no questions, but let me congratulate you, Dilumi, on your presentation. It's really useful. Even it is in a smaller scale. In fact, we need to follow up these things. When Sri Lanka introduces something, particularly for the education system, we need to have some kind of follow-up. So even in smaller scale, we have done something useful. I think the problem is more complex than we think, because now in our education system, we know that it is only from grade 6 onwards that they have introduced English medium. So by that time, the child has actually lost the best period for language acquisition, because the best period for language acquisition is from birth to puberty, which is called critical period hypothesis. by Lenneberg. So we need to consider all these facts. As I mean, if we go for policies, in particular education policies and medium related policies in Sri Lanka. So once again, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So we will move on to our second presentation. The topic is the impact of the socio-political tenacity on language usage in Sri Lankan English journalistic writings by PDDD Wickramasinghe and HR Tharanga. Presenting author is Dhanushka Dihan Wickramasinghe, and let me introduce Dhanushka Dihan Wickramasinghe very briefly. Mr. PDD Wickramasinghe is the coordinator of the English language teaching unit of KDU Southern Campus. He holds first degree and master's degrees from the University of Kelaniya and Open University of Sri Lanka, respectively. Mr. Wickramasinghe's research interests include discourse analysis, language policy, translation policies, and Sri Lankan writing. So over to you, Mr. Wickramasinghe, for your presentation.
Good morning, sir. Can you see me? Good morning, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
So one small clarification, sir, that the presenting author is engaged in a kind of KDU research conference matter today. So I'm the co-author. I'm Tharanga and I'm presenting, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Go on.
So is my screen viewable, sir?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, sir. Yeah. So we did a study on the impact of the socio-political tenacity on language usage in Sri Lankan English journalistic writings. Yeah, in case of Sri Lankan English journalistic writings, we see that there are many connotations and denotations in terms of its application. So it has been primarily impacted with the local languages, and there are many code mixing and code switching and some other kind of language modifications have been made in Sri Lankan English writing that is observable in Sri Lankan English journalistic journalistic writing matters. So that makes the basis for our research, and we primarily engaged in a study how there's the Sri Lankan English variety that we can see in English journalistic matters in Sri Lanka, how they have been impacted, how it has been impacted by the use of some socio-political undertones, some socio-political nuances, rather majorly political nuances in the country that have unraveled during the recent past. So when we perusing the literature that has already been that discuss this particular matter, we came across many materials regarding implications of Sri Lankan English in journalistic writings, and how the evolution of Sri Lankan English has taken place. So those were the material that we mainly focused on during our literature review session. So in the case of methodology, what we basically did was we randomly selected sample of English weeklies and dailies spanning across more than 3 years recently, and we engage in a kind of content analysis to interpret the textual data, and in order to uncover some kind of hidden or latent search for their connotative meanings using a kind of a latent analysis method. And towards the end, what we did was we engaged in a thematic analysis in order to itemize, so categorize our findings or our observation, rather our empirical observations, under several headings. So first of all, I would like to give you a kind of an overall notion on what we have found. So we came across there are some many SLE morphemes or some fixation has been made in Sri Lankan English terms in English journalistic writings. Oh, we came across a wonderful example, Pohotua. So it resembles one of kind of a political symbol of a political movement that has come to the fore recently to the political arena. So it can be a broad term, and we can see some inflections of that particular term, like Pohotuities or Pohotus. So in order to indicate the people or the people who are in supporting that particular political ideology. So that has happened in the same way that standard English suffixation or pluralization is done. So in order to make the plural of that particular term, what they have done is they have added an S. The letter S is added to the singular term to make it pluralized. So such kind of novelties we came across in journalistic writings. Again, we came across compounding also in Sri Lankan English usage in English journalistic writings. I have given you some examples like Pohotu supporter and Pohotu candidate. The most remarkable feature is that it has a pre-modification of Sri Lankan English term followed by a standard English term. Again, we came across some compounding and compounding like white man driver. So above it, what we have noted is that there are some additional local generated connotations to denoted terms in English. As an example, if you say the term white van in standard English, it may have a very kind of a neutral meaning. But in English, but in Sri Lankan English journalistic writings, in Sri Lankan English newspapers, that has been given some kind of an augmented meaning. So the word, other than the denotative meaning of the two particular terms, it has some kind of really it is a term which creates a sort of fear psychosis among the readership. So that kind of we can see some augmenting connotations in Sri Lankan English usage in English dailies and weeklies as well. Yeah. Another observation we came across is that there is direct translation of Sinhala or source language idiomatic phrases into English. So I have given you some examples like cardboard heroes and licking boots and sandals, and a spot of dung fell into the pot of milk. All these, their origins are in the source languages or in vernacular languages, and they have been directly translated to English and have been embedded in the English journalistic writings. So maybe the effect may be to give a kind of a close sensation or kind of a close sentiments or close affiliation to the particular context being discussed. That may be the journalistic motive behind using this kind of phrases. And we came across, as I discussed earlier, some compounding which has socio-political nuances like wartime general and some perihari jumbos. That's also related to Sri Lankan English. Yes. So we came across some quintessential semiotic devices with local flavor. That is the one heading that we have given to one kind of major observation in those overall observations. So we came across some socio-politically mooted hybrid compounds. So words compounds like Yahapalana governance, Yahapalana camp. So as I showed you earlier, so it is a compound with pre-modification from Sri Lankan English term plus with the general standard English term. So again, the writer makes, I think the writer, we really thought that the writer intentionally does it because the term Dehapalana has an English equivalent, but in this particular case, the journalistic writers, the journalists, what they have done is they have omitted the real English equivalent and they have replaced it with Sinhala term, the vernacular term in English lettering, in English. So this may be a kind of a strategy that they use to come closer to the readership. So again, we could have come across some Sri Lankan English inflections and conjugations. So the word Yahapalana, the Sinhala noun, has been again used in English dailies, and it has been modified using an inflection. It has been made an adjective or pre-modifier Yahapalana by removing some sounds or lettering towards the end of the term. So we came across some coinage of terms also. So coinage of Sri Lankan English terms, primarily in English dailies and some weeklies. So one such term is gotanomics. So it has come. It has been it is a combined term with using two different words like gota, one from personal name and from some philosophical ideal word. So again, Borchos also again kind of coined term using vernacular language affiliation. So again, we came across some vernacular connotations like down the pallang with no end inside. So coming to decadence, showing the decadence that there is a meaning that is reflected from down the pallang. So again, the writer has used the same Sinhala wording in English lettering. So this kind of strategies we used in English journalistic writing. So again, we came across some localized abbreviations, which has affiliation to socio-political context like joint opposition, JO, and the 19th Amendment. They have referred to as 19A. So what we can see as the conclusion is that in Sri Lankan English, novel terms have been added to English journalistic writings using the socio-political nuances that have unraveled in the recent past in the country. Then again, we can observe some intertwined use of vernacular language components with some other normal standard English terms. So the writers may do it with the purpose to economize words or in order to avoid verbosity. So he can quickly and efficiently convey the message, and this will make the text easier for grasping to a general audience. So yes, so we thought that the writers deliberately employ these kind of methods in order to realize their journalistic prioritized motives or rather to command the attention of the readership. And then with that, we conclude our presentation. And these are our references. And we have to acknowledge all the sources of the newspaper publishers for the support given during this research. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Tharanga.
Yes,
So
sir.
now,
Thank you. You are welcome, sir. You are welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Tharanga. And now it's up to the audience, over to the audience for your questions and any clarifications from Tharanga.
I have a question.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I'm Krishanti from the Department of Languages at KDU Ratmalana. Thank you very much, Mr. Tharanga. That was quite interesting.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you very much.
It was very interesting to see the take that you have taken on this journalistic writing. Just a small question now. You talk of tenacity, which is actually the quality of being able to grip something firmly. And the suggestion that you make that using the local vernacular is going to, have an impact. Language-wise, politically wise, there might be some derogatory aspects like you showed. But my question is, do you see that the use of the vernacular is more effective from the journalistic perspective because it is using a more grounded texture of the language. So the reach or the grasp or the tenacity is too much and good in a way. So my question is, do you think that this use of the mixing and the adaptations and the local connotations have a positive impact in reaching out as a journalist?
Really, Ms. Krishan, thank you very much for the question. So what we came across from all this perusal of this article was that all these writers have a kind of a motive or kind of intention in composing all these articles. So sometimes they may want to reach a wider audience, so they want to simplify the context, simplify the kind of wording, so that it will reach a large audience, because there are varied levels of English users in Sri Lanka. So they may reach, sometimes they may want to reach the all strata, so that even the person with people with very low knowledge of English may get something out of the article. So Ms. Krishanti, what I felt is that his journalistic aspiration is met. The particular writers, his or her journalistic aspirations may be met by kind of simplifying. That it's a kind of simplifying method, but we thought of that kind of it makes the text easier for the readership to grasp, so by employment of some vernacular language integration. So Ms. Krishanti, I thought that is done deliberately and with a purpose, with a journalistic purpose rather.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Krishanti. You're welcome.
Okay, Tharanga, just some advice to improve your work. In fact, you have looked at these lexical items and phrases from morphology, semantics, pragmatics, and discourse analysis. So what you can do is present these things also in a kind of a table where you put the lexical item or the phrase and then its morphological makeup, and then in the other column you can give the semantic effect. For example, if it is meaning extension or meaning reduction associated with it, give it. And then in the next column you can give the pragmatic force, the kind of action that they want to perform through language. And in the other column you can also give the discourse effect, for example the context. Now here we had individually these items. You can give, when you are discourse analysis, you can also give the context where it is used and how the context influences this. That will give an overall picture, and it will be better actually. So you can extend this work, you can go ahead with the same thing because it's interesting and useful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, so thanks. And then we move on to the next presentation. So the topic of this presentation is Despondency of English Language Teaching Departments, Factors Impinging upon the Struggle to Enhance English Language Skills of the Undergraduates. And the authors are Gunawardane, S. Chandradasa, and H. Senevirathne. The presenting author is Ruwan Gunawardane, and let me introduce Mr. Ruwan Gunawardane briefly. Mr. Ruwan Gunawardane is a senior lecturer attached to the Department of English Language Teaching, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, University of Ruhuna. His research interests include teaching English as a second language. So Ruwan, over to you. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me share the screen. Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Ruwan Gunawardane, joined by Ms. Senevirathne and Chandradasa from the University of Ruhuna. Today, I would like to give you a presentation on Despondency of English Language Teaching Departments, Factors Impinging upon the Struggle in Enhancing English Language Skills of the undergraduates. Today, our presentation consists of the following components, and we will be talking about them in detail. Yes. We know as the DELS, English Language Teaching Departments of our university, we do a huge role. We play a huge role in enhancing the English language skills of our undergraduates. And we can't forget the fact that our undergraduates are really intelligent, and they are considered to be the cream of intelligentsia of this country. And also, they have some sort of desire in learning the language at university, and also they know the importance of learning the language, that it will be really useful for their academic work and also for the employment. But finally, what people say is that their knowledge of English is not at a satisfactory level, even after learning the language for more than 1.5 decades. So then a question arises as to why all these, intelligent students do not reach L2 L2 competence in English. We know that acquiring L2 competence, is based on many factors. There are many factors that affect this particular aspect of learning the language. So we revisited this particular area in research. We know that people have done lots of research on this. They have tried to find out the factors impinging upon ELT at university. And we wanted to come up with something new, though we wanted to, dig up the same area. We know that, as Attapattu says, the ultimate result is a set of low-quality graduates. Yes, and they are not competent to compete themselves with the international development standards. With background and also with these research objectives in our mind, we carried out this research. The first research objective was to find out the factors impinging upon the struggle in enhancing English language skills of our undergraduates. The second one was to suggest possible innovative teaching and learning strategies. In the research, we carried out this particular methodology. Our research was qualitative, and also for the primary data, we used questionnaires, semi-structured interviews, and also observations in order to collect primary data. And for the secondary data, we referred to journal articles. The sample was selected based on convenience sampling method, and for that, we selected 112 third-year students studying in the Faculty of Science of the University of Ropuna. That's out of 226 students. And also we had the opportunity to talk to 12 teachers. Speaking about data analysis method, that was a thematic analysis. Here, now we are going to present to you with the results and discussions in our research. As I told you, these things are quite familiar to you all. And also I should stress that we also came up with something new, which I think is really important. The first thing is the low proficiency of English at entry. So this is something that we all know. When we get our students as newcomers to our universities, their knowledge of English varies. Basically, most of their, language level is very low, because we get lots of students from, from different parts of the island. And sorry for the, yes. Okay. We get, their knowledge of English is very low when they enter our universities. And the other aspect which has been discussed a lot is absenteeism in our classrooms. Yes, we know that the students do not, show much interest in coming or in showing their attendance in our classrooms. That's another issue. And also in the classrooms, we notice that they are rather passive learners, just sitting in the classroom, listening to us, and they become rather passive learners in our classrooms. So that's another issue, which I think you all know about. This is the next thing. the lack of intrinsic motivation is the most important and the key element that we came up with in this research. This is something, that our students severely lack. That's something, we are quite less visible to this. I mean, we are not much concerned about this aspect, and we don't see this. Our students severely lack intrinsic motivation. They are not internally motivated. Yeah, it's true that they have some sort of basic desire, surface level desire to learn the language, but it's not deeply rooted. So that's a huge issue. So I'll, talk about this if I have, the time on this, more on this if I have time. And the influence of subculture, again, it has, huge issue when it comes to ELT at university. We know that we see lots of students in our classroom in the first year, and when it comes to the second year, that goes down drastically. And lack of uniformity of proficiency levels of our students, again, in our classrooms, that's quite obvious. And sometimes, their knowledge of English, it varies, and that diverse, the range of differences, severely affect our language teaching in our classrooms. And we also know the fact that, students are much more concerned about their major subjects, their core subjects, not English. So that's also something that leaves our students, at a disadvantage. But that is there. And the other issue is compartmentalization. We know that as the DEL people, we work rather in silos. We are there at the DELs and working, yes, for the students, doing classes, doing lectures for the students. And we do not have much interaction with other departments. We are in different silos at university, unfortunately, which has to be discouraged. That means there should be some sort of, contact with other departments when we, for example, design our syllabus and curriculum. So we have to think about that as well. So I know that out of all these things, most of the things are quite familiar to you all. Based on our understanding and also our reference to literature, we understand that this is the most important and innovative, or rather the new aspect that we came across in this research: lack of intrinsic motivation. So unless our students are internally or intrinsically motivated, our effort in teaching the language is not successful. So we should address this particular issue severely. We know that. And the other thing is that the DELS, the university system has done a lot to overcome other, aspects. For example, influence of the subculture. They have introduced certain, rules and regulations. Yes, those things. But I think people have not thought about improving students' intrinsic motivation, which has to be addressed severely. Yes, and this is our conclusion. Yes, it's true that this has become a struggle rather than a challenge, because there are certain aspects, which are beyond our control. Yes, there are things, those issues are not, those things are beyond our control. And this is the time for the DELs, to reconceptualize and redefine our roles and integrate novel approaches to the teaching and learning process. And also there should be some sort of attitudinal change of our students. So this is where I think we should think about intrinsic motivation. I'm happy to tell you that we have already started, some research on improving students' intrinsic motivation. And we thought about, harnessing students' inner curiosity to know something, in order to improve their knowledge of English. And we actually did a research at the Faculty of Science by exposing our students to 50 articles, to read out of curiosity. So that's something that we can think about. And also another aspect is something like, humor and also curiosity. These aspects can be used to improve our students' intrinsic motivation. Thereby, we can improve their knowledge of English. So yes, we should, as DELs should communicate with our students and other departments and also other faculties. And also we should, identify their needs and when designing the curriculum. As I told you, so these concepts are not new to you. We accept the fact that, these things have been, much researched. But we wanted to revisit this particular domain or the area in order to find out whether there are some other issues that we have not understood or noticed so far. So we would like to, present this particular aspect. Intrinsic motivation, lack of intrinsic motivation is a huge, severe issue that we should think about, and we should address that in order to improve their knowledge of English, and thereby we believe we can improve our students' knowledge of English. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruan, for your presentation. So now I invite the audience to ask questions or make their observations about Mr. Ruan's presentation.
Can you hear me? I'm the Teen Management KDU.
So we can hear you, yes.
Okay, now, Mr. Gunawardane, thank you very much for that interesting presentation. And while I was listening, I was just wondering whether the research was like on the side of the students and their problems, like you are mentioning that absenteeism, passive learners, lack of intrinsic motivation and all that. And isn't it necessary also to concentrate on responsibilities of English language teaching departments, the problems on the part of teachers? And isn't that the other side of the coin that you also should concentrate on? Like, we teachers tend to always, find faults with the students and their issues, like they don't have the motivation and they are absent and all sort of claims. So whether we as teachers should also look into the reasons why that is happening so. Is it merely because of their problem? Or is there any part for us to play as teachers as a whole in departments, how things are operating? That is one question that I just wanted to raise, Mr. Wan.
Okay, sir, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. I guess I heard your question well, Yes, yeah, we do have to play a huge role. And what's quite, sad is that when we, usually this is seen as the, the fault of the DELS people, But yeah, yes, that's true. But I think there are certain things which are beyond our control as well. And for example, we usually think only about, using our classroom time in order to improve our knowledge of English. And as teachers, we should also think about harnessing their time, or in order to get the students to do something out of the classroom. People say that DEL people say, or even the DEL people say that we don't have time. That the time is just, say, just 2 or 3 hours per week, which is not enough at all, people say. But I think what we should do is that we should get the students to do something even out of the classroom, outside the classroom, in order to improve their knowledge of English. Sir, to tell you the truth, we at the University of Rowan, at the Faculty of Science, understanding this issue, rather than, making complaints that we do not have enough time to, improve the knowledge of English allocated in the general timetable, what we did was, thinking about, improving students' intrinsic motivation, we thought about, how to overcome this issue. And we came up with a particular mental state called curiosity, which is backed by cognitive psychology as well, that, sir, curiosity enhances students' learning, motivation, and memory. That is, I mean, backed by research. So what we did was we selected some, research, some general science articles in order to get our students to read out of curiosity. And to tell you the truth, yeah, it's quite difficult to get our students to do something in English, even in the classroom. Or though we simply ask our students to read something, we as teachers, sir, we just ask students, please listen to something in English, read something in English, but we know that they don't do. But we did this research on using the LMS and asked our students to read these 50 articles. To tell you the truth, I was surprised to, see students' involvement in this. And one student came up with a wonderful, comment, and he says, "Sir, I have now become a big fan of science fiction articles." So I think we as teachers should do a lot, not only to exploit our time, within the classroom, but also outside the classroom through something like that.
Thank you, and that's really illuminating and also really interesting, like to think of, kind of training for lecturers or instructors or teachers in PLTUs or the departments, because now that kind of thing that you're mentioning, like, the creative ways of, engaging them in the learning activities. Now, I felt like it's part of the problem is like lack of proper training for teachers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions, clarifications from the audience? Okay, thank you very much, Ruan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So now let us move on to the next presentation. This is on an investigation on the implementation of the right to participation in the teaching learning process at the senior secondary school level. The author is Samanthi Jayasinghe, and let me introduce Samanthi Jayasinghe very briefly. Samanthi Nayankumari Jayasinghe is a senior lecturer, grade 2, attached to the Department of Secondary and Tertiary Education, Faculty of Education, the Open University of Sri Lanka. She has obtained her MPhil and the Bachelor of Honours degree in Social Sciences from the Open University of Sri Lanka. She has also completed her PDDD with a distinction from the University of Colombo. So I invite Samanthi to present her research findings.
Very good morning to all of you. Very good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you, Samanthi.
Yeah.
Please go on.
Yeah. Title of my research is An Investigation on the Implementation of the Right to Participation in the Teaching Learning Process at the Senior Secondary School level. My presentation consists of introduction, literature review, objectives, methodology, results, discussions, conclusions, and the recommendation. Actually, policies of children's rights have evolved several decades. In 1924, the Geneva Declaration on the Rights of the Child, 1959, the UN Declaration on the Rights of the Child, and the United Nations promulgated the Declaration of the Rights of the Child are some of the significant achievements. The UN General Assembly adopted the Convention and opened it for signature on 20th November 1989. Sri Lanka ratified the United Nations Convention of the Right of the Child on 12th July 1990. Actually, the signing of this international instrument cleared the way for the introduction of further improvements in the sphere of child rights in Sri Lanka. Participation leads to full human development, which includes cognitive, social, political, and moral development. And Hartz defines participation as a process of sharing decisions that affects one's life and the life of the community. Lansdowne pointed out the United Nations Convention of the Right of the Child focuses on 3 fundamental rights. That is, the right to protection, the right to survival, the right to participation. The UNCRC has provided a framework that gives special significance to the idea that children have a right to participate in all matters that affect their lives. The participation right appears in the UNRC articles. They are 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 31, and 40. A classroom or school culture in which children's right to participation is ensured is rarely observed across the world. According to the Hub and Hall, it has been observed that children do not participate adequately in the school environment and that school administrators do not provide children with adequate opportunities in making significant decisions related to school. Fatma and others identified that they said that the student participation in decision making has yielded immense benefits to the individual students, the school, and eventually the community. And also the democratic participation offers students the opportunity to develop self-confidence, thereby improving their conditions of learning and social life. Objective of my study is to investigate the implementation of the right to participation in the teaching learning process in a few selected schools in Sri Lanka. Specific objectives are to identify the extent of the expectation of a right to participation implemented in the teaching learning process of the selected school, and to identify how far the teaching learning process is implemented in the selected senior secondary classes, and to assess the suggestions of the teachers and principals that can be made to ensure students' right to participation in the teaching learning process of the selected school. My sample consists of 692 students, grade 10 and 11, 692 students, and 36 teachers and 18 principals from the Western, North Central, and the Central Province. And perspective sampling method used for this study, and data were collected on weekdays from 17 June to September 2019. For this study, I used questionnaires, observation, interview, and the focus group discussion as data collection tool. The data analysis conduct through descriptive statistics, crucial values test, and use SPSS 20 version. And also I use qualitative data and use thematic analysis. You can see the table 1 results. Stakeholders, specialist students, teachers, principals, responses related to the UNCRC articles regarding the teaching learning process. The teachers and principal responses were higher than that of the students' rating. You can identify that low response from students, 33.4, 18.4, 21.2, and from higher responses rates received from the teachers and the principals. Table 2 indicated the students' perceptions of implementation of the right to participation in the teaching learning process. And according to the table, I can interpret that the results indicate that the Article 12 of the UNCRC is not implemented in the current classroom, and the Article number 13, freedom of expression is not implemented during the teaching learning process. Article number 14, freedom of thought is not implemented in the classroom. But according to the response, Article 15, freedom of association is fully promoted by the teachers, and the students' response into the Article 19, right to privacy, is implemented in the classroom situation satisfactorily, and the Article 17, access to information is implemented to a certain extent, however, need to be improved. Table 3 indicated the teacher's response with respect to implementation of the right to participation in the teaching learning process. The teacher's response reflected the Article number 13, freedom of expression, and the Article number 14, freedom of thought, is implemented in the classroom, as well as Article number 13, access to information, is implemented to a certain extent, however, need to be improved. I was interviewed 80 principals, and the facts revealed by the interview held with the principals regarding right to participation in teaching learning process in the selected sample was summarized under the 2 themes. They mentioned that improving teaching learning in the classroom and the improving resources and facilities in the classroom is needed for that part. And students' focus group discussion, there were positive feedback and as well as the negative feedback. They mentioned that when the teacher asked questions during the lessons or after a lesson, we answered. When we question about things unclear to us, teacher explained. And if our ideas are different from what teachers teach, we have opportunity to present our ideas to them. There are many negative feedbacks I found from focus group discussion. Some of them are, we can't ask questions all the time. Some teachers allow us to question and ask for clarification. Some scold us when we give answers, and we speak during group activities. We resolve unclear things by asking questions from both the teachers and friends. In some subjects like science, our ideas are not presented. We are scared to question about unclear areas in mathematics. And in relation to the teaching of a particular lesson, teachers ask where we understood or not. When we have a doubt, we ask questions during the teaching. But not all the students ask questions. More than half do not speak. I observed 18 classroom teaching learning process. During teaching learning in the classroom, only the teacher talks. 94.4 teachers talk in the teaching learning process, and the students are listening. Students individually involved in decision making, collaboratively make decisions, and they divide response among themselves for making decisions. 5.6. The majority of observed classroom out of 17 maintain teacher-centered education, with students' expression and decision making appearing to be quite low. I used the Pushkal test of ranked students' response in the implementation of right to participation in the teaching learning process, and depending on the school type, I used 1AB, 1C type 2 schools. Depending on the school type, the implementation of right to participation in the teaching learning process at the senior secondary school level, there was no evidence of significance. And suggestions of teachers and principals to ensure the students' right to participation in the teaching learning process. The teacher suggests to giving active contribution or allowing the students to express their ideas, and deviating from the traditional style and selecting the fresh interactive procedures, planning lessons properly, conducting project and practicals, maximizing group work, discussing questions and answers with students, giving more and more opportunities for students for debating, working friendly, and giving students more opportunities to bear leadership responsibility in the classroom. Principals also suggested many things, encouraging teachers to elicit ideas from students, motivating teachers towards student-centered teaching methodology, improving teachers' attitudes and skills, providing resources and facilities for student-centered education within the classroom and along with teaching the subject. Facilitating the teacher to recognize the students is one of the principal suggestions. Conclusion of my study. The responses of the students show that the implementation of the right to participation in the teaching learning process in secondary classes was not functioning well. At the senior secondary school level, there was no evidence of significance in terms of school type and implementation of the right to participation in the teaching learning process. However, the majority of teachers and principals stated that the right to participation is being implemented successfully in their school. Recommendation of my studies: establish the teaching learning process in the classroom to be student-centered. Prepare teachers' guide to allow students to express their ideas and update the current teaching learning process. The classroom environment should be modified from traditional classroom to a smart classroom to promote student participation in the teaching learning process. Utilize audio-video materials for senior secondary level teaching learning process in order to enrich the child-centered education. Reduce the workload of grade 10 and 11 subjects, and restructuring the present curriculum for students to gain not only theoretical knowledge, but also practical experience. This is my reference, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Samanthi.
Thank you, sir.
So now it's for the audience to ask any questions or get any clarifications from Ms. Samanthi.
Miss Samanthi, I'm Upeksha Valisundara from KDU.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you.
I just have one question. I just want to know now if you want to restructure, if you want to modify this learning teaching process into student-centered. So what are the challenges or the barriers that the principals or these teachers have to face?
Actually, I think this is one of this presentation based on my PhD research. That is one of my objectives, not only the teaching learning process, but also the curriculum and the administration level. I studied from 18 schools from 3 provinces. And what I identify is the students, senior secondary students, O-level students, they are very exam oriented. And our curriculum is content, we are having a very big content, and they can't do other work. They don't. In the classroom also, they are very passive learners, teacher-centered education, and the curriculum is heavily, they can't do other work. So this suggestions has to go to the policy level. I think it is being happening now. We have to change the curriculum. We have to change the teaching learning process. It has to be changed to the student center, and the exam oriented O-level exam things also have to be changed. Now it is happening in the current situation. I think they also can incorporate it with my study, and I have given many suggestions. I think the time has come to rethink about the curriculum, our exams, and also we have to use very authentic level assessment also to the students, because often from the O-level and the A-level, students gain the hard skills, teachable skills, but the 21st century needs not only the hard skills, but also the soft skills, communication, creativity, thinking, collaborative. So therefore, we have to rethink. Now the policymakers and the Ministry of Education, they are rethinking and they are going to change the curriculum as well as the examination and the assessments. Thank you so much.
Professor Ananda, can I
Yes.
make a comment?
Of course, yes.
Right, thank you. So I'm Lakshani Villarachi from the Department of Languages, KDU. And thank you, Samanthi, for that very interesting presentation. I actually have an observation or a comment. I know you have focused on the curriculum and the need to develop it, include more learner-centered activities, so on and so forth, to groom them for future leadership. I was wondering, simultaneous to that process, whether we should pay attention to introducing, promoting an attitudinal change in the teachers themselves. Because in the traditional Sri Lankan context, the teacher is supposed to lead, advise, the teacher is the leading figure, and the students are supposed to look up to them and follow. And speaking from the experiences of one of my former students, when she started teaching in a particular school, she employed different methods of encouraging student participation, giving the students more responsibility, and having a different kind of a relationship with the students than to what was seen there at the school. And there was great resistance from the other teachers, the teachers who have been working there for a longer time. So I think, if we can if we can complement your study with an attitudinal study as well, it might be useful.
Yes, I agree with you. And also teachers can do, even they don't want to use the teachers and learning and teaching. They can use the debating, they can ask questions, they can do more activity-based group activities to them, and they can incorporate them, they can ask questions. Then the students definitely will engage with the teachers. It may be the two-way communication, and the students learn from themselves. That is very important in these days, authentic learning and the activity-based learning. And also the teachers can't teach, teachers only can help the students to learn. It should be in the teacher's mind. Teachers have to change their attitudes. We can't spoon feed the children. We have to give the chance them to go and discover the things. That's why we have to change the education system, attitudes of the teachers, attitudes of the principals. I think otherwise we will get the parrots, passive learners, only the students with hard skills, not with the soft skills. So the 21st century, we need the students with hard skills as well as soft skills.
Very true. Thank you. That's actually one of the biggest problems we as university lecturers experience, because when they come here, so they're not ready to be autonomous learners.
That's
Good, right. Thank you. I'm very happy about, your research and the direction it's taking.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Samantha, a small clarification now.
Yes,
were the teachers and principals aware about the right of students to participate in teaching learning? Other than just a traditional classroom practice or something, I'm asking whether that the students have a legal right to participate in teaching learning. Did you have a separate data collection on this from principals and teachers?
Yes, sir. I have the awareness of the child rights and the perceptions of teachers and principals regarding the child rights. They know. Even the postgraduate diploma and their masters, they learn about the child rights, and the principals and teachers know these things. But unfortunately, they don't want to implement in their school and the classroom. They know it. Most of the principals,
Thank you, Samanthi. Thank you, Samanthi, for your presentation. So
thank you very much, sir.
We'll move on to the next presentation now. So we move on to the next presentation, the last one of this session. This is on perception of teacher trainees regarding the implementation of continuous assessment in National Colleges of Education in Sri Lanka. Will be presented by Mr. Padmasiri Wanasinghe. And let me briefly introduce Padmasiri Wanasinghe. He's a lecturer in the Ulatisipura National College of Education. He's reading for his Doctor of Philosophy degree in Teacher Education from the Open University of Sri Lanka. His current research interests include educational management, teacher education, and curriculum. So now we will move on to his presentation. Asana, do we have an audio also of this? Or is it just the presentation, just the slides, or do we have an audio? I don't hear anything.
Yes, sir. Now we inform the technical team to check it, sir. They will. I think they will play the recording again, sir.
Good morning, everybody. I am Padmasri Kumar Vanasinghe. I am a lecturer in Political National College of Education. My presentation topic is perception of teacher trainees regarding the implementation of continuous assessment in National College of Education in Sri Lanka. Assessment is considered the process of making judgment about a student's performance on a particular task. It consists of the wide range of methods for evaluating student performance and attainments, including the formal testing and examination, practical and authentic assessment, classroom-based assessment conducted by teachers. Continuous assessment was introduced to the Sri Lankan educational system in 1998. The introduction of continuous assessment occurred with the revision of school curricula from grade 1 to 11. The goal of introducing continuous assessment is to assess a broad range of educational objectives, including effective objectives which are to be assessed through assessment and group work. Continuous assessment was introduced for National College of Education in parallel with schools. According to the assessment procedure, which has been in operation since 2007, the number of continuous assessment varies according to the number of hours covered by subjects in the internal period. The maximum number of assessment per subject should be implemented by the lecturers who teach the subject as a continuous assessment of 25 hours of teaching. All continuous assessment marks are very important for the teacher trainees to sit the final examination. Accordingly, 60% of the overall continuous assessment mark is considered for the calculation of final evaluation marks. The process of continuous assessing of teacher trainees' performance and progression of learning level is a difficult task. Lecturers have to continuously assess students to identify whether their students have mastered the required skill of the expected course. Educational institutions have implemented continuous assessment to evaluate learners. Assessment must satisfy many goals such as providing feedback to students, offering diagnostic information for the teachers to use, providing summary information for record keeping, proofing evidence for reports, and directing effort in curriculum and instructional adaptations. Therefore, assessment can be explained as a process of gathering measurement individually and in group for decision-making purpose. The main objectives of the study was to examine the perception of teacher trainees regarding the continuous assessment that is being implemented in the National College of Education. Its specific objectives were to find teacher trainees' perception of continuous assessment method used in the National Diploma teaching course, to identify the challenge faced by the teacher trainees to complete the continuous assessment component of the National Diploma teaching course. The descriptive survey design has been adapted in this study. The population of the study consisted of all teacher trainees of the National College of Education in Sri Lanka. The sample consisted of 200 teacher trainees randomly selected from 5 National College of Education in Sri Lanka. I used a questionnaire to collect information from teacher trainees and mainly contain class-ended items. Depending on the type of questions chosen and rating scale were used in the questionnaire. The interview was one of the tools employed in this study to acquire qualitative data. The close-ended question and answers obtained from teacher trainees were analyzed quantitatively and interviews were analyzed qualitatively. In this slide shows the responses of teacher trainees to the questionnaire provided to reveal teacher trainees' perception regarding continuing assessment. According to analyzing, teacher trainees recognized that continuous assessment encourage reading by tending to explore subject-related knowledge, and there is a good understanding of continuing assessment, as well as continuing assessment helps to share knowledge with others and create a collaborative learning environment among teacher trainees. An interview was conducted to reveal the perception of continuing assessment. The summary of the responses given by the teacher trainees is included in this slide. Finding of the questionnaire and interview confirm that teacher trainees have a good perception of continuing assessment. The continuing assessment method used by the lecturers were given for teacher trainees to choose from the list provided, and the responses received are given in slide. Assignment, group activities, field trip, projects, and wallpapers such as assessment methods are frequently used by lecturers, but open book test, prompt, speech, quiz, survey, double entry journals, and seminars do not implemented by lecturers, and it is revealed that lecturers do not provide teacher trainees with training on all continuing assessment methods. In this slide, show the challenge faced by the teacher trainees in completing the continuing assessment from the questionnaire. The teacher trainees may have responded in such a way as they have adequate library facilities in their National College of Education. Library facilities are available to some extent, but due to the daily schedule, the time allotted for its use may not be sufficient. Free internet facilities are not provided for the use of teacher trainees in the learning and teaching process, and this is a problem encountered in completing continuing assessment test, assignment, and compendium of creation of given by lecturers should be submitted creatively. The necessary facilities for the should be available from the National College of Education. In addition to the questionnaire, information was also collected from the interview. The responses received are shown in this slide. The responses from the interview sample summarize, confirm the finding of the questionnaire, and also reveal that teacher trainees have faced other problems. According to finding, it can be concluded that overall implementation of continuing assessment in the National College of Education was good. Also, it can be concluded that there is a good perception of continuing assessment, as they have an understanding that continuing assessment develop the knowledge, attitude, and skill of the teacher trainees. Moreover, it can be concluded that lecturers of National College of Education do not implement all the continuing assessment methods and provide complete training to the teacher trainees in this regard. Furthermore, it can be concluded that teacher trainees face problems due to a lack of adequate facilities in the National College of Education in completing continuing assessment components. I suggest that based on the finding of this study, the following recommendations were made. Academic section of National College of Education should systematically regulate whether lecturers implement proper training on continuing assessment method for teacher trainees in each subject. Second one, other facilities such as library facilities and internet facilities required to complete the continuing assessment. Examination should be increased in the National College of Education. Third one, sources such as books, magazine, and research should be provided to study the information needed to write assignment, and the library should be open on weekends as there is not enough time on weekdays to use it. Finally, lecturers should be informed about the marks obtained by the teacher trainees for each continuing assessment test. These references are used by me. Author of this research paper wished to express his deep gratitude to President of Politisipura YMN Maharagam Kastunrata and Rohan National College of Education, lecturers and teacher trainees for the support the assistance. Thank you for the cooperation.
Vasana, is this presenter available for question and answer session?
No, sir, he is not available for the questions and answers.
So we conclude
Yes.
here,
Yeah.
no?
Yeah.
So shall I make?
Yeah. I think, sir, the comparers will conduct the session.
Okay. Shall I make some observations about?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah,
Sure.
and then we'll invite the computer to. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So yeah. So first of all, I thank all the presenters for their work. In fact, each presentation had its own variety and richness. So we had altogether 5, and in fact, I further advise all these presenters to further explore these areas and continue. You may probably you can have a bigger sample, all of you, than the sample you have selected, so that you can that will give you more generalizing power. You can make better generalizations to the whole country, or at least to, I mean, more sections of the people in that way. So that is one thing. And you can also go for publications in the same areas. You can improve the paper you have written for this with more data and with better analysis. And then you can go for publications as well. And also let me thank KDU, the organizing committee, for inviting me to chair this session, and then the coordinators, Ms. Vasana and the others, the technical team and all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. That was such a scholarly session on almost all the sessions that we were studying so far. All these valuable insights gave us a new perspective that one should adapt while discussing these issues practically. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to thank Professor Lalith Ananda for chairing this session. And I would like to thank the presenters on behalf of the virtual gathering here for valuable knowledge that they have provided us. DGK Amunugama, EMAN Ekanayake, NN Welgama, NP Wickramage and DU Wickramasinghe, PDDD Wickramasinghe and HR Tharanga, R Gunawardane, S Chandradasa and HH Senevirathne, SN Jayasinghe, WAMGPK Vanasinghe. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, on behalf of the organizers, I would like to request all speakers and chairperson of the session to turn on their video cameras for an official photograph. Thank you. It has been a privilege to share the knowledge in this moment with all of you. With that, we will be ending up today's first technical session. Thank you all for your honorable contribution. I kindly request you to join with the second technical session of the Language and Education of 14th International Research Conference at 10:30 a.m. Have a pleasant day.